Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level.
Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast. It's really great to have you guys joining us today. I hope that you have subscribed and saved the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast and that you're following along with each week's episodes. Right now, we are running the prelims for the Vet Rehab Summit in the Vet Rehab Summit Facebook group. What are the prelims? Let me tell you. The prelims are a series of live, interactive Facebook Live discussions where we get to interview different professionals within the field who are all working with the fascia in different ways. So in today's podcast episode, we visit our very first prelim for this year with Rikke Schultz, where we discuss the front limb lines. Rikke discusses how they work, how they integrate together, and how these front limb lines are really a part of the body, a part of everything else, even though they give us the perception of being separate to the rest of the body. She shares some really good insights and valuable advice for how we can work with the fascia. She discusses vibration and how that works within the body, which is really interesting, as well as sharing the one thing she wants us to take home today from this interview. Before we head straight into that interview, I just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Without them, this podcast and what we do at Online Pet Health wouldn't be possible. So thank you, Response Systems. Choosing the right therapy laser and PMF system for your practice are big decisions. And that's why Response Systems has been helping to make that decision easier for over 40 years by offering both Class 3B and Class 4 lasers, as well as a full line of PMF products designed for small animals and horses. As part of the Paw Prosper family of brands, Response Systems is dedicated to providing you with a customer and patient-centric approach to rehabilitation. Find out more at responsesystems.com. All right, guys, let's head into our interview with Rikke Schultz and talk about the front limb lines. Hi, guys, and welcome. Hi, Rikke. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you for having me here.
All right. Rikke, will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey into the fascia and into fascial anatomy?
I will. Thank you, Anae. I am from Denmark. I've been in vet since 92, so over 30 years. And I already started when I was studying to be interested in alternative medicine or complementary medicine. So I learned as acupuncture and homeopathy at vet school, not in the school, but alongside. And it made me understand the wholeness of the body from the beginning of my veterinary career, which has been marvelous. And then about maybe 12 years ago, I got to know Tom Myers and took part in some of his courses and read his books. And I thought, well, this must apply to animals too. So I called Rikke Schultz, who is an associate professor at the University of Copenhagen at the vet school, and asked her to whether we could look at this in horses to begin with and later in dogs. So we set up some dissections and did go through the whole book of Thomas Myers. And then we started dissecting. So this was the beginning. And I must say that makes all this holistic approach come together. So for me, my fascial kinetic lines is kind of the anatomic understanding for what I need to look at this whole animal.
I really love that. I love that last thing you've said, where it's the anatomic understanding of how we look at the whole animal. And I definitely agree. It's the conversation has come up in the last few weeks of, why is this relevant? You know, we work with the fascia. When we work with our hands, we're working with the fascia. Why do I need to know more than that? And it comes back for me to that exact point of, how long do we study anatomy? Because it has to be our foundation. And if we've missed such a big part of that anatomy by not understanding that connection through the fascial lines, then it makes very logical sense to say that we're missing a very big component of how we're looking at our patients if we are not looking at those fascial connections. So I really love that. All right, so today we're talking about the front limb lines. Will you tell us a little bit about the front limb lines in horses and in dogs? What are they?
Yeah, I will. We were actually discussing for quite a long time, how will the animal front limb lines be compared to the arm lines in humans? And every time I did communicate with Tom Myers before we started the dissections, he would ask in every email, what about the arm lines? And well, I don't know, but we had to go on and dissect and stand in the dissection hall to find out how is this working. So what we came up with is that there's two primary lines, which is protraction line and a retract. And onto that is adduction and abduction, internal rotation and external rotation. So it all comes together. So when there's a protraction of a front limb, there need to be an adduction. So the front limb needs to go in under the thorax in order to support. If it would go in abduction, the whole thorax would collapse in the landing phase. So that's why it needs to go a little bit in front of the animal, and that will also create an external rotation, so that the animal might land a little bit before on the left, on the outside, and then on the inside. But it's like minimal, but that's naturally happening. Opposite to that, when the animal go with the leg in retraction, it will also go in abduction to get away from the belly, and that will create an internal rotation. So this made the front limb work in a figure 8, like a figure 8 all the time. What we need to remember is that, especially in horses, the shoulder, the front limbs are only connected to the thorax by muscle and fascia, no joints. So that is how on the upper third of the scapula, there would be a rotation pivot point for the front limb. That's where they rotate around.
Okay. That's amazing. Okay, so I've never actually thought about that figure of 8 motion, but essentially when we are protracting, there's a little bit of adduction, so coming towards the midline, and then external rotation, so forward, adducted, external rotate, and then retraction, it's the opposite, so away from the body, adduct, and some internal rotation.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you think about how people, when they walk, their arms swing, it's exactly the same. You do not swing your arm out to the side. It will swing in front of you a little bit if you really walk like vigorously and have your arm swing going. So it's the same thing.
Same thing. What are the differences between the dogs and the horses' front limb lines?
There is some connection from the bony connection, so there's a little bit more stability of the thorax, especially compared to the horse. But otherwise, the muscle fascia, myofascia is very similar to the dogs or horses.
Are there some differences in function? Because dogs have much more capacity to move laterally and in different planes with their front limb.
That goes for the whole dog. Like there's some like kind of more elasticity, and Vibeke has been fortunate to also dissect some of the big cats from the zoo, and they have even more elasticity in the fascia. So that's something with the fascia that's different. Like the whole smoothness is larger in those animals because they can move more like this, and the horse is much more stabilized because it's a large animal and it has support the whole big trunk. So the whole fascia system is much more tight, if you can say it like that. It's not as elastic as as the carnivores.
Okay, so the main difference is like the actual property of the fascia.
Yeah. All right. And it's just, and you can see in every kind of animal that the fascia is really, it's really composed to work well for that specific animal. So like if it's a fast runner, like a big cat that needs the elasticity and be able to like sneak around and do like this, then it's very elastic. And if it's a camel, for instance, then there must be a huge stabilization of the, what do you call it, what the camel has on the top of the back. What is it called? Humps, yes, the humps. That's very, very tight, strong fascia tissue. So because it has to stabilize the humps. So in that aspect, there's big variations in the content of the fascia depending on what the animal, how it's living and what it's doing, which is very interesting.
Right. So I think the very interesting thing for me when I started looking at the lines was when we look at the first lines we learn about, so the superficial ventral and dorsal and deep ventral and dorsal, they're really very much connecting the entire body from front to back. And then when we look at the front limb lines, it feels like it's really separate, and that the front limb is like almost a whole different part of the animal, not really connected in the same way. Is that accurate, or is that just kind of what my brain was doing with that visual representation?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the visual representation, and we also do not have made a lot of photos where we show both the front limb lines and the other lines together. But there is a connection. So if we think about what the spine is doing in protraction, that is more flexion, whereas retraction is more extension. So that is one thing to remember and to understand how there's a connection between this frontal movement and the spine. That's one thing. And then the next thing is that as the protraction line, for instance, has similar muscle and fascia with the lateral lines, superficial lateral lines, so the brachiocephalic muscle in both of these lines. And the superficial lateral line will do flexion of the spine and side bending if it's only contracted in one side. And then the front limb will protract. So if you see, for instance, a show jumper coming over a fence and stretching the front limbs, they very often should then also have flexion of the neck, because both front limbs is forward, brachiocephalicus is contracted, and there's a flexion of the neck. So there is a connection that's very obvious. If you look at the retraction line, the similar muscles there is latissimus dorsi with the functional line and the thoracolumbar fascia, and also the deep pectoral muscle. So they will retract and adduct the leg a little bit, and it will then also go in rotation, in extension and a slight rotation. So that's the functional line coming in there. But it's simple for the leg to be able to come back and then the other leg to come forward. Then there is a rotation of the spine at the same time. So partly the functional line will be part of that. So definitely there are connections. And it's very important to remember that none of the lines work on their own. I know we describe them one by one, just as we describe anatomy. When we learn anatomy, we learn one muscle in origin, insertion, function, which is a way to learn. But then we have to connect it all. And that's what we have forgotten in the traditional anatomy education, is to put everything together again. So that's what's being done with the lines a lot, but we also need to think that they always work together. And that is very often the balance between the lines that is insulted, and that causes difficulties for the animal to move in a correct way.
Okay, so again with the connection between the lines, I think Tom Myers says somewhere that even when creating when dissecting out the fascia lines, you're still using a knife. So we're still creating separation where there isn't separation, and we need to remember that. And I think that is exactly what you just said now, right? It is all connected. Yes. And we're learning this different way of I think we're learning a wider way of connecting the tissues in terms of their function, but we still broader connections than even that we need to keep in mind when we're actually working with our patients. So what can people learn at the Vet Rehab Summit from yourself and Vipka?
Yeah, so what I think is very important about the lines and what have helped me to get a better understanding is, for instance, if a horse comes or a dog come in and is stiff all over, then you can sometimes be, where to start? What is this? Where can I start and then begin? So by releasing the myofascial kinetic lines, then you can like peel the onion and you can get into the main problem. So that is really something that I hope that people will use it for. And using the theory about myofascial kinetic lines can be integrated in whatever methods you use. It doesn't matter how you work, and you can just put it in as an extra tool. It's not that it will save everything, but it's an extra tool to see and to understand what is going on in the animal. On the other hand, if you have performed, let's say, a knee surgery on a dog, it's a way to predict where can the next problem occur and how do we want to rehab this animal so it doesn't go further and compensate somewhere else. Or you will know where, or have a better understanding of where should I look for compensations in this case, for instance, of a knee surgery. So that's really what I hope that people can get out of it, this broader understanding.
Okay. All right, we have a really great question here. What do you feel is the next best method to release the lines aside from acupuncture needles? That's a really great question. Yeah. In your book, you speak about the points, right, which are acupuncture points. So how else can we help with those?
Yeah, so I just want to say that these are not traditional acupuncture points, but we use them needles to release the fascia. And there's 1 point for each line, except for the 2 helical lines. So the helical lines will cross over the midline and introduce rotation. So every time they cross over, there will be a point for each crossover. So this is the points that we're talking about. So you can, like if you're a veterinarian in Denmark, that's the only one person who are allowed to use needles in animals. So then you can use acupuncture needles, but you can also use any kind of waves. So that means sound waves or light waves. It seems to release the fascia in any wave you can put in there. And what is interesting is that in fascia tissue, there are mechanoreceptors, different mechanoreceptors, so different nerves. And there's some that are called pacinoreceptors, which will feel for vibration in the tissue. And this is a very old system, like it is in all the like snakes and all these kind of animals. So they will very often fly or leave an earthquake area long before humans will feel that something is going on because they're so sensitive to vibrations. So in our system, there's sensitivity to vibrations, and vibration comes in through waves. So you can use a tuning fork, for instance. It's very, very effective. I use that alongside with the needles. Or you can use laser light, red light, for instance, too. So it's all sending waves into the tissue, and that will work.
Oh, that's scary.
And with acupuncture needle, you can. It's only in the skin, so it's just a little. It's not deep at all when you put that in. So that is interesting. Yes, very interesting, and safe. I'd say if you can't do any harm, and that's very important for us. That if you try to use this point in any way, you cannot do any harm with it.
Right. So any like wave-based modality that we can use to stimulate those same points. Yeah, I've been using acupressure, so I'm going to try and shift that to maybe a little bit of vibration, even if I'm just using manual vibration.
Yes, I think vibration is better than pressure, and it could be a tuning fork like the 440 hertz. It's the short one. It's handy to work with. And we have also used the C128, but it's much longer. So it's a little unhandy, especially in the small animals. And if you want to get under the fetlock on the horse, you don't have space enough. So then the 440 little one is very, very...
All right, I'm going to try that on my own horses, because I think my clients will think I'm crazy.
What? And Tove Dole, our third fellow, who also wrote the book and have found all the points, she has been using this tuning folks for years, and people have been laughing at her. But now when we understand that we have these patchouli receptors in the fascia, it makes total sense that it works. So just tell people about that, and they understand it, and then they stop laughing.
It's so interesting. I think just this shift in the way that we look at the anatomy and the receptors in the fascia and in the body, and the shift in how we understand the body to be communicating among itself with itself is huge, and it helps us to understand some of the weird modalities that we've been using for years that have been effective and we don't know why. Like light touch, right? Like really light touch. So that's very interesting. Thanks. Good.
And when you talk about touch, it seems that if you just change the tension in the tissue, that will make the body start to relax that tissue. So any way you put your hands on lightly, it will have a positive effect. And you could also read the line just following it and do, for instance, I guess you in South Africa at least are very familiar with the T-touch from Wellington Jones. And I learned that like many, many years ago. And I have always wondered, why is that so effective? But if you think about it, it's because they have influence on the fascia and the biofascia. And I think that's why everybody can have success with doing these little light circles, because you release the fascia. And it really makes sense to me.
The other part of that makes sense is the nervous system, right? The role that we're engaging with the nervous system and the brain. And I don't think we fully understand that yet either, but I think there's so much power in just working with, engaging the patient instead of just treating them and doing to them whether they're with you or not with you, or mentally checked in or out. I've really been focusing more on having that mental focus from the patient so that they're engaging in what I'm doing, and I've found a difference there as well. And that was the big eye opener for me when I learned the T-touch techniques, is that it was very much what is the patient giving feedback on each of these techniques. And to not just carry on regardless, but to continue to get that engagement and feedback. And I think that goes in the fascia. That's part of the fascia and what we're learning about. Yeah,
it is. And the other thing about fascia is that there are a lot of sympathetic fibers, which is a stress from the stress nervous system in the fascia. And we all already know that, because when we get distressed, we get stiff in the shoulders, and the shoulders come up here. So everybody has recognized that, I guess. So there's a very tight connection between the tension in the fascia and the sympathetic nerve, or the autonomic nervous system, but especially the sympathetic. So if we can get the fascia to relax, we can also get the mind to relax and downgrade the stress level. And that is when our treatment starts to work. If we work on a really distressed animal, we really don't have results. It's when we can get them to relax. That's when we get in there and we can do a difference. And it's so important that we are ourselves relaxed when we treat. If you come in the stable, right into the room, and you're just all uptight and you're thinking about your next patient and you're behind schedule, you will not make a good treatment. You really have to come into yourself and be there in the patient. That's when you can really make a difference. And that's this autonomic nervous system. Because they're really stressful.
The really hard things, right?
Yeah, it's really hard. That's right. Really time back during the years. You will be much faster, because if you're relaxed and calm to begin with, you will get relaxed very soon and very fast too. So the more and
with looking at the tension in the different fascial lines, I've also started to notice that horses can be, functionally in a very high stress state. Like a lot of horses are living in that high sympathetic tone. Do I call it that?
Yeah.
But they're functional. So we think they're fine because they're doing all the normal things and they're doing them very much within the range of normal behavior.
Yeah.
But when you start to break it down a little bit, it's like they're actually in a really high sympathetic tone and they're functioning there. And their bodies are a mess.
Yes. Totally. Yeah. I agree.
It's very, and they go completely hand in hand. The physical and the emotional you cannot separate them.
No, you can. And that is, and then we also have anatomy for that. It's because there are sympathetic fibers in the fascia. So it just tied together also on an anatomical level. So it's not something that we can discuss. This is a fact.
This is a fact. I really love that. I really love it. Rikke, what is the one kind of thought that you want to leave listeners with today? What do they need to remember?
I think this wholeness, this is how everything is connected. I think that is for me the most important thing. And what we now have, like, if you do acupuncture, you will recognize as a lot of the meridians will follow the fascial lines, or the opposite way around. So that means that we now have really a good anatomical explanation for holistic thinking, and also for acupuncture, and this wholeness, and you can use this anatomy to explain to the owners or your colleagues, all that. Who are not into this way of thinking, that there is an anatomical foundation, and that I really want you to take that with you, because we need to work on making the whole industry understand the wholeness. Because what we learn as vets is only to look at the area that hurts, and that's just not enough. If we want to create health for the animals. If you want to symptom treat, that's a way to do it. But we really want to make them healthy. We have to look at the whole body. So that's my most important feature here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes. Do you have a book? We do have a book. They wrote an incredible book. Okay, there it is. And it is on Amazon. And you can get that link on the Vet Rehab Summit website, because we've added it in there. There are also research articles that they've published on the myofascial lines, the deep and the superficial lines, and those are also linked on the Vet Rehab Summit website. Those are the important things. If you haven't registered for the Vet Rehab Summit yet, there are 3 ways you can do it. Number 1, you can become an Online Pet Health member and then register for free. I highly recommend this because it is the most cost-effective way and the most value for your money. For the next month in the Online Pet Health membership, we're also going to have some challenges and some added value so that you can really build that foundational knowledge on fascia through different lecturers that we already have in our library. And then you're going to register for the Vet Rehab Summit on the 10th and 11th for free. So that's the best way to become an Online Pet Health member. The second way you can do it is to purchase a ticket through the Vet Rehab Summit website. Again, I'll link that for you guys when we're done here. And the third way is to register for a free ticket for the Vet Rehab Summit, where you'll be able to join us live on the day. Is there a canine book on the way?
Yes, we are working on it. We hope that it will come this year, but we won't manage. So we are working on now. While next date is in the winter, so at our place, so February, March, we hope it will be ready. So we are really working on it.
And the research on the canine line?
Yeah, Gips's, I think that is the article that is now finished is being proofread. So that's where it is. So it will be published in not so long time. This year, I guess, at least.
Awesome. That was amazing. That's amazing. Another question. Can we try to extrapolate the 2 species? That was fantastic. this question.
Yeah, it's very quickly. Yes, you can. It's very similar. There will be added some extras to the dog lines, but that's not so important to know now. You can really take the points from the horses and put on the dogs. You can surely do that. And also the tests. You just, of course, have to remember that the dogs are a little more elastic than the horses, so that will make it feel different. But if you are a dog person, you can easily do that.
All right.
So, yeah.
And the VetRehab Summit lineup is also combined. So we'll be going through the canine and the equine anatomy lines and then treatments mostly together. And the last lectures of the summit will separate the kind of clinical application into 2 separate longer lectures. And even those, we recommend that you attend both, even if you're only working on one or the other, because there's always something you're going to take away that's going to shift the way you're looking at your patients and thinking about different pathologies and different issues. So that's a fantastic question. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Rikke, thank you so much. This has been really interesting, and I cannot wait for the summit. Guys, go buy this book. It's so good. It's going to help you. Yeah. Just dig deeper. I think this is the textbook that I've read more than any other textbook. Really great. It's well written. The visuals are amazing. The photos, the illustration. It's really fantastic as a reference book.
And we actually get back to us who has never been on a course or a lecture that just have started using the method from the book and have a great success with it. So I think you can just go ahead. We also send it from our own website, fascialliance.com. If you're in Europe, and the States is Amazon, it's cheaper to buy it there because of the shipping.
And you run regular courses in person as well.
Yes. Yeah, we do that. We have 3 days courses, equine or canine. We're actually starting an equine course tomorrow here at my place, and in a month we have the canine course. But I'm sorry to say it's full. But I will put updates for the next courses for next year very soon on the website. So then you can attend.
Where do we buy tuning forks?
Tuning forks, just go on the internet. It's quite easy, and they're about €10 or something like that. They are not expensive. So, as I said, 440 hertz, the A tone, and you can also use the C tone 128. But it's just longer and more difficult to work with. So 440 is the easiest, and it works really well.
That's fantastic. All right. Thank you, Rikke. Have a great day.
You too. Mine, you too.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Response System. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast out to you for free. So go and check them out. You can go to responsesystem.com. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit on Friday the 10th and Saturday the 11th of November. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.